Hey listeners, just a quick note that the first 7 episodes of this series were recorded before the tragic passing of Akira Toriyama. We hope that by sharing our love and passion for what he has created, we can somehow honor his memory.
Yep, you will be missed, Akira. Hey everyone, welcome back to another amazing episode of Nerdy Jock Media Presents Dragon Ball Z Megapod. This is my co-host DK, aka the DB Guru, who also just happened to have broke out of the dead zone.
And that's Kevin Ketchum, aka the Nerdy Jock, who is one with Kami in body and spirit. They're both dead.
Oh yeah.
Welcome to a very special mini-sode. We're going to be covering the first Dragon Ball Z movie titled in the West, The Dead Zone.
Dead Zone. Not to be confused with the Christopher Walken, Stephen King adaptation from the 80s.
Right.
Dead Zone.
Which used to play on TV all the time in the 90s, and whenever I would see it on the TV guide, I would get so excited thinking that there was a Dragon Ball Z movie on, and it was always just Christopher Walken.
Hey, you can't go wrong with Walken.
Garlic Jr.
Yeah, Garlic Jr. here.
I sense of power in that boy.
It's pretty good. Pretty good there, Dan. Sorry. Okay, anyway, so what are we talking about? We're doing Dead Zone, huh?
We're doing Dead Zone, and this movie is pretty interesting.
Okay.
I have a lot to say about it, not in terms of the plot. I feel like the plot's pretty thin, not a lot going on, but, we were talking off pod about the timeline of the creation of this and the release of it in the total timeline of Dragon Ball in general.
Okay.
So basically, Dragon Ball stops airing. It shows its last episode on April 19th, 1989 in Japan. And then April 25th, 1989, that's when Dragon Ball Z starts airing.
So literally 2 weeks later.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in July 15th, I believe, of the same year, this movie hits theaters. Meaning, and what's interesting about that is that both Dragon Ball Z, and this movie, the animation director is the incomparable Minoru Maeda.
Awesome.
It's got all of the same staff. It's got Shimanuki, Naotoshi Shida, Tadayoshi Yamamuro, all the big names for all of you animation nerds out there. I know I'm missing a ton because I'm just dipping my toes into that world and learning about all this stuff. But they were all working on all 3 of these simultaneously.
Jesus. Dude.
The amount of work that anime artists have to do. I mean, again, I've plugged this in the past. If you're not reading it, read the manga series Animeta about a girl trying to be an anime keyframe drawer in Japan. Just to have a meager poverty salary. You have to draw 10,000 pictures a month, I think. It might be 20,000. I don't remember the exact number. But that's how much these people were drawing. And a lot of them were working all the way even through Super. They stayed on.
30-something years of work.
All the Magical Girl series, like Sailor Moon that Toei did. All the various iterations of Digimon, some of them worked on.
Not to interrupt, but it kind of does remind me of even AAA gaming in Japan, how they have the artists and the computer animators and the graphic designers working literally around the clock up until deadline, sometimes living at their cubicle.
Right.
And I assume that's very similar with the animation world as well.
We talked about the manga artist's drawing schedule too.
Right.
The amount of pages that they have to not only write but draw.
Brutal, man.
In a week. And I don't think it gets much easier once you get to anime. I mean, the woman who draws the manga series Animeta, she used to be an animator at Production IG.
Okay.
And she does amazing interviews at the end of the Tankobon where she talks about that. And she was there during some prime years, like Jinro, the Wolf Brigade.
Okay.
So
cool anime. Yep.
Yeah. During some great years in the 90s, and it probably had a hellish schedule. Probably went through a lot of the stuff with the protagonist. Anyway, check it out. We're going to move into this movie and just touch on this. And just a salute to all of the animators who were working on 3 series simultaneously nonstop and pulled off some pretty incredible action sequences.
Pretty cool stuff here
in this movie. So let's get right into it.
Our first Dragon Ball Z movie Megapod.
Right.
So Welcome. Glad you guys are here.
And as Kevin and I often do on this podcast, we're going to be looking at this through the lens of our childhood selves.
Right. So okay, one quick tangent here.
Go ahead.
We have released like 3 or 4 episodes, and people are making comments on YouTube, which is great and stuff like that.
Yeah.
About how we missed like a Bardock and his story and how Goku was sent back. Like that wasn't a retcon, but it was a retcon. It was
Sure.
It was a special made off series. So I think something to note is like you just said, we were looking at it from virginal eyes, like we were watching it as kids, and like taking it without knowing too much of the future. Sometimes we'll go forward, but for the most part, we're looking at it from like this moment in time in the present while we're talking about it.
If you've ever seen the movie with John Cusack where he owns the record store, I forget what it's called, High Fidelity.
Yeah.
There's that moment where he says he's arranging his records autobiographically. That's how we're tackling this series. Because even there is a clip from Bardock, Father of Goku, in some of the episodes that we're going to be doing on a pod pretty soon. And but we didn't get that special for years after that aired.
Years after. So that really didn't even come in my mind canon until then. But that's just a little tangent. Sorry to take you off course.
No. We got to explain. We're coming from this.
Yeah.
So this movie, I remember when it popped up. When I rewatched it, I rewatched the original Pioneer DVD release. I have multiple releases for it. I'm not ashamed to say it all.
I have one as well.
But I really went back to this and some fun little bits on these early DVD menus. When you go to the language options, one of the languages you can pick is Namekian, and then when you click on it, it shows a angry looking commie and it says, "Sorry, this function only works on Namekian DVD players."
Oh my gosh, that's a cool little feature there.
Yeah, they were playing with the menus and the features back then when these came out, and it was fun. But I remember the first time I rented this movie. From my local video store. I remember seeing it and saying, "Oh, Dragon Ball Z, the movie."
Right.
Okay. And this movie for me was a huge splash in the face of what Dragon Ball Z actually feels like.
Right.
Let me explain. When we were watching in the 90s, as we said, it was edited a lot. There was a lot of stuff that was cut out, and this was completely uncut. It was a lot more violent. There's a moment where Chi-Chi says hell right at the beginning.
Right.
Just what the hell do you want in the English dub? And I was a little kid. I was like, wait, what? This is Dragon Ball? And also the music was different. Because we had Shuki Levy doing the Ocean score. And so it sounded like Power Rangers because he also did the Power Rangers score. It had that kind of feel to it. So having this orchestral, weird, kind of magical, dark score provided by Kikuchi, it was the first time hearing that. And also just the opening where Piccolo gets murdered, you think anyway.
Great opening scene, by the way.
Right. I mean, it's kind of shocked me as a kid. I mean, I've talked about before Scott McNeil doing that metal scream in the Ocean dub. That's the first thing you see after that Toei Waves on the Rocks logo. Is just and it was like, whoa. And then he gets attacked by by 4 mysterious dudes.
Perfect.
They kill him.
Yep.
And then Head Cha La starts playing.
Right.
And that was the first time I had ever heard the opening and the ending song was this movie. Both Cha La Head Cha La and Dete Koi Tobikiri Zenkai Power, which is the ending song. So I remember a seed was planted when I saw this movie as a kid. And even looking back now, I watched it again. I didn't really have nostalgia goggles for the events in the movie.
Right.
It's a pretty thin plot.
It's pretty thin.
But I remembered the feeling of a kid of being like, wait a minute, Dragon Ball is actually different from what I know it to be. And that continued on with the next 2 movies, The World's Strongest and Tree of Might.
Right.
When you see those scores, when you hear the songs that play, it's a totally different feel. So when I was diving back into this for this pod, that was the place that I put myself in. Is just was that moment of discovery of this is what Dragon Ball Z actually kind of is.
Right. I mean, me personally too. I mean, that's a great introduction. I wish I gotta be honest, guys. I do not remember the first time I saw it. Like, I don't get taken aback in that regard. I mean, I think I remember The World's Strongest, probably even a little more than Dead Zone. But I remember it all came out kind of around the same time, and I just kind of collected them all at once. And I didn't really know about an order or like the Dead Zone came first until I watched more of the series and realized, okay, this is going on. Because I was like, what, 8 years old? You know, we're pretty young. But I definitely knew it was cool to see something a little bit different, even though it had the same form as Dragon Ball, but it wasn't. You know, because like American movies, we expect something a little bit different. But in Japan and Japanese animation, in cultural, they'll use kind of, you know, an episode like a Demon Slayer, for instance. They'll do an episode from last season, and they'll add a new one of the next season coming up, and they'll put it in a theatrical release, like in 90 minutes or something like that. So they'll kind of do the same thing, but this is a little bit different. So in the Dragon Ball Z movies, they will take some of the similar animation styles, even some same shots, and just kind of like repurpose the animation for the setting or wherever they're making the characters go or do.
Right.
So we do have a little bit in there. So it's familiar, but it's not exactly the same.
Yeah, and it kind of felt like, and maybe this was the case because all three were being done sort of simultaneously, that this was a beta test for what Dragon Ball Z was going to be. Because Piccolo very much has the same character model that he had in Dragon Ball. It's a great character model. I really love the way old Piccolo looks. You know, Goku, much more rounded eyes, all of that stuff. And yeah, it definitely has that in-between feeling. And like he was saying about how other anime will stitch together episodes and make a theatrical release, the precedent that was set with this, well, there were a couple of precedents set, and one of them that they just completely abandoned, which I'll get into later. But the precedent of making the villain stand in for a villain of the show. Right. So we have in this movie Garlic Jr., who mirrors Piccolo in his story, basically. He actually mirrors Kami in a lot of ways, where he, his father competed for Kami for the position of God. Right. Kami beat him, so in kind of a Lucifer thing, he led an army of darkness against Kami, and then Kami sealed him away vaguely in some dark dimension or something like that. And then his son, who's like the simulacrum for Piccolo Jr., I guess.
Very similar to Pilaf as well, Emperor Pilaf from Dragon Ball.
Right.
In stature, not energy so much, but yeah.
Might be the same voice actor in the Ocean dub. I'm not sure. Yeah. I watched it a couple of times for this pod. I had to watch it in Japanese, of course, always. And then I had to watch the original dub too. For a couple of reasons. One, for nostalgia. Two, for fun, because I watched it with my girlfriend, who has now seen all the way through the Cell Saga in Kai, which again, I keep saying is the best dub of Dragon Ball Z, period. Is the Funimation dub of Kai. Got it. They nailed it. It's great. But I wanted to see what it would be like if she had the reverse order, if the Ocean cast was her second cast. Yeah. And we'll do a little segment at the end of this episode, a quick one of my girlfriend's review of the voice acting of Dead Zone. But anyways, let's get into the plot.
Let's get the plot.
Yeah, we're going to hit this running. This is going to be a mini pod. Yeah. So we open on that teaser. Piccolo gets killed. We have Chala Head Chala. We see Gohan studying cicadas in a book.
Just like episode 1.
Very precocious 4-year-old. He's reading a giant textbook on cicadas. Right. Gyumao, aka Ox King, shows up, his grandpa.
And of course, just a quick note that, you know, he does study insects when he grows up as well. Yeah. So that's, just a little...
planting the seeds.
Planting the seeds for years and years later.
Right.
Okay, continue.
I think in the original Ocean dub and the Arrival clamshell, when Bulma asks him what he wants to be when he grows up, he says an orthopedist or something. But yeah, he does grow up to study insects. So that's a cool thing that they took. But anyways, so... all of a sudden, something happens where Ox King has these presents and he just falls down, knocked out. You see this dude, robed, dark figure. Who the hell is this guy? And that's what Chi-Chi asks him. What the hell do you want? They say they want the thing on the kid's head. And this was another new thing watching it. Thinking, oh, Chi-Chi can fight? Right. When I saw this movie, I had seen Dragon Ball from Raditz all the way to Goku arriving on Namek at least 6 times. But there was never a moment where you would think, because Chi-Chi is very anti-Gohan doing martial arts. Yeah. But she strikes a pretty sick pose, like a kung fu pose, and she can actually float a little bit off the ground. She has like kind of this Chun-Li like off the ground towards the attacker, but just immediately, boom, gets gets hit.
That's it.
Gohan gets kidnapped. Goku shows up. He's only concerned for Gohan. Doesn't give a shit about Chi-Chi at all.
Or Ox King, just like a father-in-law doesn't care. Chi-Chi doesn't really care.
Right.
Oh, where's Gohan? So at least he is a loving father. I was wrong, guys.
Right. There's some beautiful animation throughout, and again, I mean, it's the same staff. It was so cool watching the credits, and you see Minoru Maeda there. You see all the names. I mean, you see Daisuke Nishio, I think his name is. I hope I'm getting his name right.
I couldn't tell you.
He was the director, amazing director. Did a lot of the episodes too. Might have been the series director for the episodes. For all the animation nerds, I apologize. Like I said, I'm just dipping my toes into this.
Right.
I don't have it memorized yet. I'm working on it, but there's some beautiful animation when Gohan gets snatched, where a cape goes into the foreground, and then as it pulls up, the light stretches up into the sky. And just thinking about this being done on individual plastic cells, it's just mind blowing. So anyway, he gets kidnapped because he's got a Dragon Ball. We learn about Garlic Jr. We learn that whole backstory. Luckily, they kept him and the Dragon Ball, so Goku is able to use the Dragon Radar to locate him. But it is too late. Garlic Jr. summons the Eternal Dragon because for his wish, he wants immortality to get vengeance on Kami for what he did to his dad.
Yeah, and real quick though, who are those? He has what? Garlic Jr. has 3 minions with him.
He does.
And I don't think they're even mentioned by name in the film.
They name themselves.
Okay.
They're Ginger, Nikki, and Sancho.
Okay, because I watched a Japanese version recently. I was like, well, I don't remember them saying their names at all, but maybe they did.
Well,
so
that leads right into it. So the Eternal Dragon, or Shenlong, grants Garlic Jr. immortality. Goku and Kami both show up. Goku's kind of an asshole to Kami.
Yeah.
And there's some weird stuff in
some tension there, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some weird stuff in the Pioneer dub, which is not canon, where Goku's like, Kami, this is none of your business.
Right.
And Kami's like, Goku, you haven't changed at all. And if you've read Dragon Ball, if you've seen them interact, they never had a contentious relationship.
Yeah, he trained him. He was like, dude, what are you talking about? They should be like buds. One more thing I'm going to add on there real quick, though.
Go ahead.
Is that in the movies, something that doesn't really happen in the series that you're going to notice a lot is that in the movies, the bad guys do actually get to make wishes. A lot more often than regular Dragon Ball Z, the TV show. Because in the series,
it happens in the first 2 movies.
Yeah, in the first 2 movies, back to back, the bad guys get the balls, they make their wish. So rarely ever, actually, in Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball, a couple people get wishes, but it's a little bit crazy, just more comical, like Olaf stuff like that, accidental kind of stuff. But rarely do the bad guys like get what they want and actually make it happen. So it's really cool to see that happen right off the back of this film. Starts, the bad guy got the balls, he's already making his wish, and then we just hit the ground running, you know?
And he also gets the wish that all the biggest bads want. Vegeta wants eternal life, Frieza wants eternal life, Garlic Jr. is the only one who actually gets eternal life. I forgot to mention one thing. So there's a theme running through this pod where we're talking about how it feels like the staff were just testing the waters of what Dragon Ball Z was and who it was for.
Right.
Behind the scenes in the manga, when Toriyama decided that he wanted to age Goku up and he wanted to change his design and make him look more adult, the entire staff at Shueisha and Jump, I think, were very trepidatious about that idea.
Yeah.
Like, Toriyama, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You've got the smash hit, you know, but he was insistent upon it, and he did it. And so there was sort of this in-between period where how young is the audience watching it?
Right.
And you can see them testing a weird trope in this movie where Gohan eats a piece of fruit and he gets shit-faced.
This is a great scene, by the way.
Yeah.
Because, up until this point, to be honest, all the bad guys, Garlic Jr. and the other kind of whatever their names are, I can't really remember.
Ginger, Nikki, Sancho.
Yeah, Ginger, Nikki, Sancho. They all are pretty threatening. These are scary looking bad guys. These are not like, fun looking, fake enemies or someone who can easily be beaten. They are intimidating. They're kind of really ogre. They have an ogre, green goblin kind of look to them all.
Even their environment.
Yeah, it's a really scary
it's all
castle.
red. It's very jagged.
It is
towers.
dark. It is a lot darker. It reminds me of some of the 80s, like, Henson stuff or like, like
totally,
Dark Crystal kind of vibes. Like really dark energy. You're like, oh man, this is kind of scary for like a kid to watch. So they do kind of push limits there that they haven't really done yet in the series. And it's funny because once he does get shit-faced on this fruit, whether it's peaches or whatever, he gets drunk, man. He gets drunk, right?
He's hallucinating. There's a musical number
hilarious
performed by Masako Nozawa, the voice actor of Gohan and Goku, where it's Gohan just singing about how he's so smart because he can see so many worlds. And you see like dancing dinosaurs and stuff like that. And this is a trope that will continue into the next movie where there's just a random musical number. I do not know what the thought process was, if they're just like, well, you know, who is this for? Our audience is super young, right? And then eventually, by the time Tree of Might rolled around, they dropped the musical number thing.
But it was cool to see how the characters do turn on a dime, the bad guys, from being like, oh, vicious, we're going to kill you, do not whatever, to, oh, gosh, now we are literally babysitting. So, and it was kind of fun, a kind of little, fun way to mix it up, you know?
Totally.
All right, continue.
So Goku does this cool little thing where he gets around Garlic Jr. by jumping off the pillar. The three henchmen, Ginger, Nikki, Sancho, they chase him, they introduce themselves. There's a great fight where they power up. And I remember that, I mean, this is the first moment, I'm not even kidding, as a kid, where I and my brother, my older brother, we actually talked about the directing decision here. Because when they power up, it's like shot, slow motion, Goku's ready, back, forth, and just full speed, just it's, I mean, the way that built tension and the way that it hit, I still, just as an animation fan, especially for this show, I really loved it. That worked well.
They have some really great back and forth fighting here. You know, they also start the blade fight. Do you want to talk about that, or are you just saving that for later?
That's a little bit later.
Okay, that's a bit later.
Yeah. So they fight. Garlic Jr. is just kind of beating the crap out of Kami. Kami's not really doing anything to him. It goes back and forth. Goku gets an edge. Two of the dudes fire at him. Krillin shows up to save the day.
Gotta love Krillin.
Krillin shows up, and then Piccolo shows up.
Piccolo's not dead.
Yeah, and Krillin's scared of Piccolo, which was a good little thing. Is being like, oh, okay, so there was... When I was a kid, I didn't know that this wasn't canon when I saw it. I was like, well, maybe this just happened before Raditz. And maybe it just happened exactly the same where Gohan awakened in inner power and did all that or whatever. Well, you know, all that stuff. But so Piccolo shows up. Gohan, drunk, pees into Krillin's mouth. I thought I was going to get in trouble when that happened because my mom was in the kitchen and I was watching it. And I saw that, and I could not believe that happened in a cartoon.
Yeah.
I mean, I
don't remember that part, actually. But.
Yeah. Gohan's drunk, and he's peeing, and you just see a stream come down on Krillin's head, and he looks up, and it goes into his mouth. It's a moment, man. And as a kid, I did think I was going to get in trouble, and luckily I didn't. So thank you, Mom, for not seeing that part.
Yep.
Then Piccolo ends up getting revenge against Sancho. Just beats the crap out of him, kills him. And then this is when, and then Kami and Ginger are still fighting, or Garlic, not Kami and Ginger. Kami and Garlic are still fighting. Kami has one little thing where he goes like super Namekian for a second and blasts Ginger back, and he tries to kamikaze himself at some point, but then there is this amazing moment, which is unprecedented anywhere in Dragon Ball Z. This beautiful battle sequence where Goku fights two armed enemies. They pull weapons out of their bodies.
It's a great scene. Really cool. Great animation.
Goku, for some reason, has his Nyoibo back. Even though in the anime, it's still connecting Korin's tower to Kami's lookout.
But he's got it.
But it's cool. I mean, it's in the intro, too, when he jumps down and he does that little
And he kind of needs to have some kind of weapon, because these bad guys, they pull blades out of their body. Did you mention that? No.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So they pull these blades out of their body, which is a really cool little feature as well.
And you see, Goku's not really that comfortable. Yeah. He's like, kind of doing that while he's doing it. And then there's just such awesome animation with this thing. And part of it was used in Rock the Dragon, where they're slicing at him and he's doing all these crazy little maneuvers to get away. Eventually, he Kamehamehas them into oblivion. And then Piccolo and Goku save Kami from Garlic and begin the fight with Garlic, who powers up to his super form.
And he gets huge. I mean, and all four of these bad guys, they can, they can grow and hypertrophy their muscles. Like they get jacked, they get huge, and then they attack again.
Right. One quick note to backtrack. I forgot that when Garlic gets the wish granted, his henchmen in the English are like, hooray, hooray. And then it cuts to a shot of Goku. He's like, return Gohan. And the henchmen are like, return Gohan.
Yeah.
That made my girlfriend laugh. So
I had a couple cool moments like that.
yeah. Kami is just useless.
Yeah.
This whole movie.
He
he's
doesn't
just
do much, man.
I mean, I know Garlic Jr. got eternal life, but I mean, if Kami was theoretically able to seal away an army of 1 million demons or
Right.
however much it was, this one tiny little dude doing these little spinning beach ball key attacks is murking him. I mean, it's just really, it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
We love Kami. You just got to give him a little bit of. He's there for plot purposes only. Basically because he connects Garlic Jr. and it's Piccolo and it's Goku. So they just trained. They just got to the Tenkaichi Budokai from Dragon Ball. So Kami still played quite a big part. At the end of Dragon Ball. So I think they're kind of they're just probably using him as connective tissue between Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z a little bit too.
Anyways, long story short, just recapping the Raditz stuff. Right. Goku and Piccolo take off their weighted clothes.
Boom,
Piccolo
boom.
says, "Don't get too comfortable." Because Goku's like, "It's kind of weird that or kind of in Japanese, he's like, it's kind of amusing that we're teaming up with each other." And Piccolo's like, "I'm gonna kill you when this is done, bitch." And then
they do talk some shit to each other the whole time, actually.
Yeah, and then actually Piccolo, after they defeat Garlic Jr. Right. He's immediately like, all right, Goku, I'm going to kill you now. And they start fighting each other. Yeah. Garlic Jr. rips a black hole in the sky.
Okay. The dead zone.
Yeah, the titular dead zone. Rips it open in the sky.
Eternal blackness.
Everyone's going to get sucked in. And then Gohan awakens an inner power. I guess he's not hungover. He wakes up and he blasts Garlic Jr. into the dead zone.
Right.
It seals up. And that's pretty much.
But yeah, just one more thing before we wrap it up is that when Gohan does release his hidden power, this is probably the coolest animation version of him releasing his power.
Oh yeah,
because it is like a nuclear weapon of energy exploding from him. He's kind of under some rubble. You hear him crying, and then he gets pissed because he sees, Krillin and Piccolo and Goku are all getting sucked into the dead zone. So you hear him going. And then boom, and you see this huge like blue and white wave of light just take up the whole
multiple
screen.
shots, like boom.
It's like boom, it's really cool.
Boom.
And I was like, they should use that for the series. Like they should have him when he does a true potential force. It's never quite like that. And I was like, I think that was the best expression of, hey, if this guy does have Beast Gohan abilities in the future, or if they are going to give him untapped potential that's going to be even that potentially they could surpass Goku, then they should do an even bigger, on-screen visual display of that energy. And I think this Dead Zone, they did the best version of that out of all the times he does his untapped potential kind of.
It's a great point. It was very beautifully animated. Cool. It was. I got chills as a kid.
Yeah.
When everyone loses their grip and they're getting sucked into the dead zone, and then Gohan's like, "Daddy!" and then the beam just. Boom! Slams into Garlic Jr. And so now he, with eternal life, is just trapped in this black hole until the filler series for Garlic Jr. where he escapes somehow. So
very similar to Superman 1 with Zod as well. So we have some similarities between the Raditz saga, which you talked about the saga, in episode 2 of our podcast, the full-length feature, which you can still check out on YouTube, by the way.
Right.
We checked that out, and we talked about the references between Superman and Zod, the similarities too. And they have some here in Dead Zone as well.
Yeah. So overall, not a great movie.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to see some really cool battle animation, if you've got the nostalgia for it, I have eternal love for this movie just because this was the thing that made me realize that the thing that I already loved was not actually what I was used to.
Right. Yeah.
But there was different music. There was, all this stuff. It planted the seed. And I remember later when I got Tree of Might, or I rented Tree of Might, I had a tape recorder and I recorded Head Cha-La, just playing it on the TV, and I just recorded it, this really crappy audio version of it, and I would listen to it over and over and over again because it was a portal into a world that I
Right.
didn't understand, which was the original Dragon Ball Z experience, and I've been chasing that high ever since, baby.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love your enthusiasm and energy for Dead Zone. My final thoughts on it are I enjoyed it as well. Like I do think it seems to me like when I watch it, because it does have Head Chala, like the intro song for DBZ. It has the intro. It kind of just says, hey, not quite a movie. It's more like a side episode, you know? It feels like it's just a side episode. Not even a filler, but just like its own little thing. So I don't know if movie's the right word for it, because if you look at it from a movie perspective, it does kind of lack. I mean, you don't even need to have the subtitles on. I mean, it's mainly a visual experience. The script is like, it's pretty bare, you know?
Right.
But it's still a great, fun time, and it's the intro to Dragon Ball Z for a lot of people.
Yeah, and if you lived in the UK, I apologize that all you had access to was the big green dub, which we are going to cover at some point.
We will. We'll get to that.
Because I have so many quotes from the big green dub from this movie memorized that I do. Me and my buddies have so many bits about them. But quick segment before we wrap up. Obviously, I watched this with my girlfriend. She's seeing this with totally virginal eyes as a woman in her 30s. So I asked her what her final thoughts were on the movie. She said that it wasn't bad, but it was a little strange because none of the characters were doing the techniques that she was really used to. I think there's one Kamehameha in the whole movie, and most of it is just punching and kicking, which at this point, she's used to people calling out names of attacks. She's probably used to Krillin using Kienzan, you know, all of that stuff. Gohan using Masenko. So that was a little, you know, strange. It was interesting, but you know, she thought it was cool that they were doing different moves and more specialty moves. I asked her what she thought of the English voice cast, and I was surprised by her answers. So
I did not. I watched the Japanese subtitle, of course.
I did too, but with her, I watched the Ocean dub because I wanted to see what she thought compared to the Kai, just because it's fun.
She enjoyed it. She enjoyed it.
So Piccolo, she prefers Chris Sabat's Piccolo. She likes a deep voice, stoic Piccolo. I respect that. You know, especially in Kai, Sabat does an incredible, incredible job. Krillin, she's a Sunny Straight stan for Krillin. So she likes Sunny Straight's Krillin. Can't fault her there. He does an amazing job. His acting in Kai too. I mean, after doing it for 20, 30 years, he just has it down at that point. She likes calling Click and Beard as Gohan more than Saffron Henderson, so she was not a fan of the Ocean Gohan. But surprisingly, she liked Peter Kalamis' Goku more than Sean Schemmel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Curveball.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Schemmel is the most prolific English Goku there is. And to the majority of the fan base that watches it English, he is the definitive Goku. And there is absolutely, I mean, that's substantial. He's done so much, but I got a little smile because, you know, in terms of English Gokus, just for nostalgia reasons and because he matches Masako Nozawa at times in his yells, I really do like Peter Kalamis's performance as well.
Nice.
So anyway.
Good little voiceover roundup as well.
And then an unsurprising take, I showed her clips of it in Japanese. And she was devastated by Goku's voice. She just
I love it. I love it.
I love it too. I love Masako Nozawa's voice. But she in her very mild-mannered way, she's very polite. She just said, well, that's not how I would expect a buff man to sound. So anyways, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a fun mini pod covering the first Dragon Ball Z movie, Dead Zone. We're going to be covering these sequentially as we come to them in the series. So
we're a little bit behind on this one and the other one, but from now on, we're probably going to be caught up on track as far as release dates. So
right.
You know, we did a couple episodes first in the can before we even did this one. So we'll get there though. We'll try to keep it on task so you can actually go with us and watch along with us as well. Remember to follow us on all of our socials as well.
Yeah, and like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And if you hated this episode, tell us.
Yeah, let
we
us
don't
know.
care. We love the hate mail.
Yeah.
We love the fan mail. We love the hate mail. Tell us about it. If you didn't like the video, you can click that dislike button. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
But just click the like one.
Yeah, just click the like one anyway.
Just do the like one anyway. But no, we're glad to have the support we have. We just launched not too long ago, and so far so good. We're having a great time doing this, which is the most important thing. But we're glad you guys back at home who are watching and keeping track are enjoying it, going on this journey with us. So thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Dragon Ball Z Megapod.
Abayo.